Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 139 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am your regular host, Neelan. I am joined by my two most loyal and regular hosts, the Green Tank Mark and the Blue Tank Christina.
This is the best orientation. This is it.
Yeah.
This is what we all wanted, and we got it.
This is also the energy we were looking for
That's
in
right.
a host for a BGBOB.
Exactly, yeah, because as Christina just mentioned, spoiled, if I might say, this is a BGBBOB episode. BGBBOB, I don't know how that's said anymore, but
Whatever
we
you
go
say
back and
works.
forth.
either works, exactly. It doesn't really matter what it stands for, but we're going to be rating our biggest board game, Bugbears.
Bob is angry. It was 121 degrees locally to where I am
man.
today, and
Yeah.
so Bob is angry.
On
It-
fire.
It's a negative Bob. This is a
hot.
negative Bob.
It is a hot, hot day in LA, and this is going to be a hot, hot episode. We're going to be hashing out all the worst, spiciest things that irritate us, that get us heated up in board game world. We're also going to be talking about some amazing board games. We've got discussions on Pendulum, Calico, and Telestrations Upside Drawn coming up. So let's jump right into that with the games that we've been playing. Mark, tell us about
Yes.
Calico.
I'm going to start out with some spicy cats with Calico. Calico is a knitting themed game, or I guess cats/knitting
Yeah.
theme. So I guess if you're going to
They,
upgrade,
they go together.
yeah, that's true. And I guess thematically what you're doing is as you're putting this quilt together, you're attracting cats to sleep on your quilt. So it's like a cute way to meld the
Yeah.
two. Yeah. So what you're doing in Calico is you have a recessed board. That's your player board. Everybody has their own player board that has different colored and different designed patches of quilt. And on your turn, every round you can have a hand of two pieces of quilt. The quilts come in a couple different colors and a couple different designs. Your turns are really simple. You place a piece, and then you draw a piece from the array to bring your hand size up to two pieces. And you're going to keep doing that until everybody has filled their quilt. You have a couple different goals, and this is actually leads to one of the negatives for me, sort of negatives of the game.
Starting off strong.
That's right, negative.
Bad
This is a
Bob.
negative episode.
Angry Bob.
If you wanted a positive episode, skip this one because we're getting mean. No. So you have a couple different goals. Actually, you have a myriad of goals. On your quilt, you're going to have selected 3 goals, basically. And the goals are going to sort of be based on how you surround those pieces. So you're going to select 3 goals. You're going to place them on your quilt, and then you're going to surround those goals with pieces of quilt. And based on if you've met the criteria on the goal, you'll score bonus points at the end of the game. So one piece that you might select, you're given 6 randomly, and then you're picking 3 to place on your quilt. But one goal may be like, make sure every piece around this goal marker is of different colors and or designs. So if at the end of the game you have surrounded that goal marker with different colors, you'll score bonus points. With different designs, you'll score bonus points. And if you do both, if they're all of different colors and different designs, you'll score even more points.
Which is really hard.
Yes, which is really hard. Especially really hard, I would say nigh on impossible to like do both. And all your goals are going to have these 2 criteria where if you hit both criteria, you'll get even more points.
Wait, so each goal has
Yeah.
2 criteria.
Right. And if you
You
hit
have
either
6
of them,
things you're trying to...
that's correct.
Hitting all 6 would be impossible, frankly, but that would be what you're aiming for.
So that's more one source of points. Another source of points is whenever you put 3 pieces of the same color adjacent on your quilt, you'll place a button of that color on the quilt, and you'll get bonus points for that. If you get a button for all the colors of the quilt, you'll get an additional number of bonus points. So that's another target. Have quilt pieces of the same color touch each other. Another goal is to have pieces of the quilt based on not color, but design in some orientation that is randomized at the beginning of the game. So one may be like 3 of the same pattern in a triangle, or 4 of the same pattern in a line, or some other criteria, again, not based on color, but based on the design. And if you achieve that, a cat comes to your quilt and takes a nap on it, and you get bonus points.
I haven't played it, but it sounds like it qualifies for one of my bugbears
Oh,
that I
perfect.
submitted
Okay.
to the list tonight.
Great.
But we'll
Looking
see.
forward to that. It's going to make a callback. So it's an incredibly cute game. The pieces are super vibrant. The recessed boards are very cool. Like at the end, like it really has a really nice design, and it's all like tightly put together because, you know, of the recessed board. So it looks really, really nice at the end of the game. And it's very simple to play because, you know, you're just placing one, drawing one, boom, 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 boom. Game is quite short as well. Well, I guess it could go long in some cases because the negative aspect of the game is there are all these ways to score. And if you played against somebody who like really wanted to maximize their scoring, I can see this game dragging out.
Totally.
Yeah, I feel like the way to play this game, at least the way I'll be playing it in the future, is like just immediately think I'm not even doing this. Like I'm not even doing these scoring criteria. I'm not even going to
only
try.
focusing on 3 of my goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I'm only yeah.
And maybe not from the get-go, but like really soon into the game, you're like, you know what? This is just not happening, and I'm just going to abandon it.
It's almost like 3 turns in, you have to be like, yeah, no, that's not happening, and I'm okay with that.
Right, exactly.
And I think one of the things that brings that to the fore a lot is that these design goals like intersect with each other on some hexes. So sometimes you'll have to place a hex that in the ideal world will satisfy both conditions on either side, which, like you said, if you were to really, really sort of drill down and spend time figuring it out, good for you. But
it would also just drive you crazy.
Exactly. And it's probably not going to be worth it because one of my criticisms of the game is you're a little bit beholden to the tiles that are going to be coming out, especially if you're focusing on specific colors and specific patterns, and those just don't show up. There's not a lot you can do about that.
And you know what? Actually, part of that is fine.
Totally.
Because the game does things to combat this analysis paralysis. Like Neelan says, you're beholden to the tiles you're getting. So you know what? These are what you're getting. Like, just deal with it. And also the very, very small hand size of 2 tiles. If that was even 3 tiles, I feel like the game would grind considerably more. So it really limits your decision space in a way that it almost needs to because of like how crazy you could get if you're trying to compute everything out. But a lot of good things if you do play with players who aren't going to stretch things out. This is a very family-weight game. It goes quickly. It does strike me as a game with a very small rule set. And again, the vibrancy of the color and the theme is really, really cute.
Oh, the cats are tiny.
Yeah, they are tiny.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to picture like how you put the cat on because the board is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm clicking through pictures to try and see how you place the cat on top. And all I'm seeing are real cats on top of the board. Yeah, it's really cute. But then I finally got to one and the cats are little teeny tiny cats.
Little teeny tiny cat tokens.
I think it's definitely worth stressing how cute and how good the artwork is on this. This is a Beth Sobel illustrated
Very
game.
pretty.
It's beautifully vibrant. It's just got these soft pastel. It's adorable top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed because hearing you describe it for the first like minute, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds great. And now at the end,
I brought the negativity.
You brought the negativity, and I'm not sure I can handle it.
It's super quick though. You know, it only takes about 20 minutes or so.
Totally. And it's one of those games that's pleasant, but like deceptively pleasant sometimes because you'll get to the end of the game and just be like tearing your hair out at things not coming together, which is one of the things I like about that. It's almost like roll and write, like you're generally a victim of your own bad planning, or at least a victim of your like arrogance in thinking you could achieve everything. Right. But yeah, very, very pleasant little game, very easy to explain, and I thought it was good.
I just clicked to a picture of a cat on a real quilt. I'm just telling these pictures are adorable. Just go click through this game. If you want to feel the pleasant experience of the game, all you have to do is go click through the pictures on Board Game Geek.
You've fallen down the Calico rabbit hole. Or cat hole. Because it's cats, it's not rabbits. Right?
Yep.
Am I right or am I wrong? I think I'm right about that. And that is Calico.
Christina, what have you been playing?
I and we have been playing a little game that came in the mail this week that I was so excited about called Telestrations Upside Drawn. So, as you might imagine, this is a game where you are drawing upside down. So you break into teams, and each team has an artist and a guide. And then everybody else on the team is a guesser. And the artist is technically a guesser as well. So all of the guides on each team are going to pick a card, roll a die, and pick the word on the card that connects to the image of the die. And then every single guide knows what that word is, word or phrase. So they are trying to get their team to guess it. And the way they're getting their team to guess it is they have control of the board. All the artist can do is hold their pen. Okay, so the guide can say 2 words. When I was first reading the rules, I thought that meant they could like give 2 hints, but That's not the case. The two words you could say are up or down, meaning pull your pen up, put your pen down. So this game was just a riot. We were all laughing hysterically the entire time. When I was the artist, I was laughing so hard I couldn't hold the pen straight. So poor Neelan was like actually being a good guide, and he would tell me to pull the pen up, and I like shot my hand up, and he's like, okay, well now I can't tell you where to put it.
I would say down and wait for Christine to lower the pen slowly before I positioned it. That was so good.
Gosh. Yeah, this was amazing. I imagine it would be even better with a bigger group. We played at 4 players, so we had 2 teams of 2. And still, it was just hilarious because as the guide, you're 1, trying to picture this upside down, and 2, you're trying to use somebody else's pen, which that part was actually easier than I expected.
Well, it was easy for you, but my teammate was Kellen. So I'm the guide. I know what the answer is, right? And I am controlling the board. And so all Kellen's supposed to do is put his pen up and put it down. But as I'm trying to guide the board, he thinks he knows what it is, and he's just like drawing it. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Was he right ever, or was it just completely...
So our word was pharaoh, right? And I had guided him to draw a triangle, to represent a pyramid. And then I'm trying to draw a face next. So I said, pick up your pen. He picks it up, put it down. And as I'm trying to draw a circle, he's convinced I'm trying to draw another triangle. And he just starts drawing a triangle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so did you guys like this game?
Yeah.
It's like exactly what you think it is, and it's like that great. You can tell what this game is just by the description, and it's fun. It's like, yeah, you're controlling somebody else to draw something. It's a unique spin. All these games feel to me like at some point you would get maybe sick of them, or it's not like a game that you want to play like over and over again. Well, maybe I can see this being like a game you play over and over again, but it's...
Yeah, because Telestrations, I can play that over and over
true.
and over and over and
yeah.
over.
It may not scratch the like gaming itch, it's more of like an activity, but it's a really, really fun activity.
Mm-hmm. I was a little bit surprised that it didn't really have that much of the Telestrations DNA into it. Like, it felt closer to a Pictionary variant than even Telestrations does, but I liked it. It's such a dumb little thing that you're doing that it can't help but be funny, which is exactly
Although
what
it was fun. It was fun to use some of the very small meta of Telestrations. Like, for example, when you're trying to describe 2 words and you split the screen by drawing a line down the middle.
Oh, right.
I was like so excited because I drew the Neelan's right side. So my left side of the board, I drew a fiddle, and then I was like up and I moved it, and I was like, he's never going to see this coming. Down. And then I just pull the board towards me, and we got a straight line down the middle. It was so satisfying. But I agree. I think that it will wear out faster than Telestrations.
Yeah.
But man, for a twist on Telestrations, it's great. It was just so fun. And again, I think it would be even better at bigger player counts.
Agreed.
So that is Telestrations Upside Drawn.
And finally, the last game that we all played is a little release called Pendulum.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Just a little release.
Yeah, a little indie game that just came out of nowhere. This is, I should say, the much anticipated new release by Stonemaier Games. This was designed by Travis P. Jones, and as you'd expect from a Stonemaier game, it is quite a lavish, elaborate production. The premise of the game is one of a worker placement Euro game. So this is a game where you're placing workers out on the board in order to perform actions, in order to get resources, which you would then convert into other resources. In the case of Pendulum, that chain is fairly quick. You're getting resources to generate victory points. You have 4 victory point tracks technically, and you want to get them all past a certain mark in order to win the game. Anyone who gets their points past that mark, whoever's got them furthest past the mark, is the winner. One of these tracks is really small. It's just like an achievement you have to get at some point in the game just once, and the others are longer. They're accumulated through the other resources. The twist on this game is that it plays a little bit similarly to a game like Tzolk'in, where you are planning your workers in one step and then executing them later. The double twist and the big gimmick of the game is that there are these sand timers that dictate when those 2 phases are. So every block of actions has 2 identical rows. One will have a sand timer that's counting down in it. You are only allowed to place a worker or retrieve a worker from a row without the sand timer, and then you have to wait for the sand timer to flip into that row. Anyone can flip it when the sand runs out. Once it's in that row, then you can execute the action, but your worker's locked there until the worker flips back. It's a little bit of a tricky central system, but the analogy I came up with afterwards to think about it is this idea that the timers signify almost like work hours. Like you can come and go as you please when the timer isn't there, but once the timer's there, the only thing the workers can do during that time is do the action, and then they have to wait there until the end of the timer. There's sort of this like tempo to when workers are moving in and out of zones, because you're watching one timer about to tick over and you have to get a worker in there before it moves to the other spot, and you're hoping that you're going to quickly be able to retrieve the worker from one spot so you can place it in the other one to get all the actions done that you need in order to get the victory points that you need to accumulate. The timers also have different lengths on them. So one of them is a 45-second timer, one of them is a 2-minute timer, and then finally there's a 3-minute timer which will signal the end of the round. Once that's flipped twice, the round ends. You go into sort of a council phase where you're going to get rewards based on how many votes, which is another resource you've accumulated. And then you repeat that. There's just 4 rounds of that, real-time phase, council phase, and that's the end of the game. It's a relatively short game. I mean, it sounds maybe more complicated than I'm suggesting. And I would say that getting a grip on some of the specifics of it is a little bit tedious, because you have to know this stuff to like be able to handle the real-time phase like without messing up constantly. But it's a fairly breezy game that still has that stress of real-time element to it. What did you guys think about Pendulum?
I went in pretty apprehensive based on what happened to me after playing
What
Tapestry.
happened to you?
It was traumatic. You have to go back and listen to the episode. But yeah, I was just not a fan of Tapestry whatsoever. I was going into this one apprehensive, but trying to keep an open mind, and I ended up liking it. I did not love it, but I liked it. The real-time aspect of it is what holds together. We were talking after the game. I was wondering, because of some issues we had with the timers, which we'll get into, I'm sure, later, I was wondering out loud, like, what if you played it without a timer, as is suggested, right? It's the recommended way, like, play the first round without a timer.
Yeah, well, to clarify that, and this actually may be worth talking about, there is this variant that, like, simulates the timers flipping. So it's kind of like everyone does their actions, then you move a marker and it tells you which timers to flip. So there is still the elements of the timers moving back and forth, but without the real time.
So it, like, teaches you the rhythm.
Exactly.
Basically.
That's exactly right. But we actually opted to, like, forego that entirely and just jump straight into the timers.
As Neelan sort of mentioned, thinking about it, although the fact that I guess different places would trigger at different times in a timerless game is interesting, but there's not really too much nuance to the worker placement spots. There aren't very many on the board, so playing it without a timer, the game might suffer quite a bit. But the real-time aspect of it did feel a little bit messy, but not enough that it put me off the game. One thing that I sort of did like, it didn't really rear its head too much in our game, but the idea that once timers run out, it doesn't necessarily need to be flipped immediately. Like, there may be a reason why people at the board, you know, you may be the only person who's caught that the timer has run out, but you realize, like, hey, that gives me enough time to put a guy out to score, or I want to keep my opponent's workers locked, so I'm not going to be the one to flip it. Those are sort of interesting aspects of the game that I liked. I would be interested in playing it again, but it doesn't feel to me like a game that I'm going to ever love, but it is a game that, if proposed on a game night, I would not turn down.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I probably liked it a little bit less, but I also probably like real-time games the least of the group, I would say. Once you got into the rhythm of the timing, I really loved that part of it, and I thought that was really unique and a cool new way to approach a worker placement game. But I just really struggled overall with, and this had more to do with my ability to connect the icons on my player board with the icons on the main board. And there was such a disconnect, and it took so long to figure out where those things were that it just, everything kind of felt more jumbled in my mind. And the impact of the real time only increased that jumbliness.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things that I love about worker placement games is like blocking other people and getting blocked. And I actually didn't feel that as much in this game. And you would think you would feel it more because it's real time. You would think that you'd be racing to place your worker before other people. There was only one spot on the board that we were all, and it was the one place to get this specific victory condition. And so we were all kind of fighting for that every time. But aside from that, I really did not feel any tension of like, oh my gosh, Kellen got there before I did, or oh my gosh, I really want to block Neelan. And I like that. I wish there was more of that, and that's kind of what I was expecting to be elevated elevated because of the real-time factor. So I feel disappointed because I think it was fun and unique. And I wish that some of the things like the iconography were improved. And I think I actually would like it a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on both those points, because there are only like 12 different worker actions, right? But even now, after having played a couple of games of this, I can't like logically connect where those are on the board, right? There doesn't feel to be like there's a logical flow to how they're positioned on the board. Part of me wonders if that's a little bit deliberate, because there should be a little bit of like frantic and like a little bit of chaos to a real-time game. But I'm not convinced it is. It just feels messy. I think that also is true of just, honestly, the design, the graphic design of the board. I feel like it gets more visually confusing than a real-time game should be. You should be able to cleanly read the board in order to act quickly. I also absolutely agree that the worker placement blocking, it came up like once or twice that I was like, oh, I can't place this guy because it's blocked by another player, which is like anathema to the idea of worker placement. I think to sum that all up, and the thing to like reflect back on what Mark and I had said at the end of the game, is Mark asking, but does this work without the timers? And no, it's one of the worst worker placement Euro games in the world without the timers. Like it's just very staid. That said, I do think that there is something novel and really interesting here. I think learning the tempo of the timers and getting a feel for, I know I can execute this one twice before I have to worry about looking at this timer, was something that only clicked in rounds like 3 and 4 for me, at least personally. But once I felt I got that, I was like, man, I feel like I've mastered something here. I'm going to get this in here. I'm going to get this over there before that time, slip it onto this hourglass, and that'll be just enough time to get onto this third one. And that felt cool.
Yeah, it felt like a dance almost.
Yes,
and
exactly.
like when you were like, you got the steps and you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And then you just like, you fall into it, and then you know you have to move certain pieces at certain times. And that was completely new and felt really satisfying.
Describing it as a dance that's actually perfect. That's like opened it up for me in a way that I think I hadn't been able to articulate, because that's exactly it. It's like you sort of start to feel like it's a little bit of a song that you know the flow of, and you can know how to move things in and out of the system in order to maximize it. And I do think that is neat. I am always a fan of an imperfect game that is trying to do something really novel and interesting, and this is way up there in that regard. I do think it's a good, not great game, but it's one I kind of want to give a little bit more time to. I still haven't explored the more advanced characters, which are different abilities and that sort of thing. I don't know how much those add to the game. I do think we would be remiss at this point not to mention our biggest hang up with the game, which was that the timers just didn't work a lot of the time. Timers getting stuck frequently or not seemingly to measure out the time that they're supposed to accurately. At one point, Christine, I think you mentioned that the green timer had completed before the purple one had. Even though we noticed that maybe one of them had got stuck, but it didn't seem super apparent. It's not always easy to see when they get stuck either.
Which, to extend the metaphor, is like after you learn the steps of the dance and you're excited that you learned the rhythm perfectly, and then the song starts skipping. Right. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
And again, that's perfect, because that breaks it. It absolutely breaks what the game is going for. Like, if you lose that rhythm, you lose that tempo, then the core of the game is lost.
You know what? And I agree with you like 80%, but there's a part of me that wants to make that part of the game. Here's the thing.
The broken timers?
Here's the thing. The thing that makes it a fail as opposed to interesting to me is that when a timer is stuck, it's hard to tell sometimes. Now, if when the timer flowed, it was clear. And then when it stopped flowing, like you could tell, like, okay, this one is definitely...
It started beeping or something?
Yeah, sometimes you can't tell. So in this world that I'm concocting, imagine timers when they flow, you can tell. There's a stream of sand, right?
Yeah.
And then you can tell when it stopped.
But you have to notice.
Then it's part of the game.
Yeah,
then it's like, oh, I want this timer to stop. I'm not going to say anything. Or I need this timer to start. I'm going to tap it.
So what you're saying is, if you're a good enough dancer, it doesn't matter when the music's skipping.
That's right.
You can figure it out.
If you're Fred Astaire like me, that's a reference that I'm sure everybody knows, then it doesn't matter. Timers be damned.
All right.
As Callan would say, get good.
I don't think he would say that about this one.
He would not say about that.
He was the most upset about
Yeah.
the sand timers not working.
Yeah, I think all of that stuff is really unfortunate, and it feels like the one thing they had to get right for this game to work. I will say this, and not to defend busted timers, but in my experience, they're being very good about replacing anyone's timers that have issues. It's a novel, imperfect, weird, super weird game. I don't think it's the hit that Stonemaier is going to get in the wake of something like Wingspan, but what could be, frankly. And that is Pendulum. So let's get right into our feature topic, the BGBBOB.
Bob.
Board Game Barrage's biggest board game bugbears. Starting now. We're firing up Pub Meeple.
So let's go around and talk about the criteria we use. So for me, I picked things that I know were basically irrational. Like, these are not problems objectively, but subjectively, if I am the subjector, these are things that I do not like in games. What did you do?
I think I had different criteria.
That's fine. It doesn't matter.
I mean, who could say?
We're wild and crazy.
Because I kept accidentally moving into, like, things that other players do that are annoying. I'm like, that's not exactly it. So mine are just mostly objective bad things in board games.
Mine are, at least mostly like Mark, a little bit centered around my experience. I think some of them, I'm struggling to think what I submit now, but I think some of them are just going to be universally, yes, we all acknowledge that this is a bad thing. But there are definitely a couple that have like specifically weighed down some of my games, which we'll see when they come up. I just want to mention that we've also thrown in a couple from the absent Red Tank, so we will be attempting to argue from his position.
I'm sure his are going to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I guarantee you, right now, this is my solemn guarantee, there is no way that Kellen's ones are going to win. I will not allow it in his absence. There's no chance.
I think that's a given.
There's this like competitive part of me when you make that challenge that just, because I don't want Kellen's to be at the top, but when you say it, I'm like, well, I just have to fight you.
Why don't we join forces and just crush Kellen?
Our joint competitive spirits.
So, to be clear, we are going to be picking the ones that are the worst of the two when they come up, right?
Yes, exactly. So for those that don't know, the way this works is we're going to put all of our suggestions into Pub Meeple, which is a way to sort of rank items side by side in order to get like a ranked list. When we are committed to what we think is the pick, we will say fire away. That locks in our choice. 2 out of 3 votes, and that is a done deal for that matchup. And in this particular case, a fire away means that you're saying that this is the worst of the 2 bugbears.
And also to clarify, fire away is TM.
Yes, exactly.
BGBTM.
We came up with that phrase and we will aggressively protect our trademark.
That's right.
So let's get right into it.
Unless you have a lawyer.
Then we'll fold immediately because we've got nothing. Who are we kidding? Okay, first matchup. Coming in from the left, we have Sandbox Games.
That's me.
Versus low quality components and artwork.
All right.
Me.
Okay, give us your pitches.
Games need a goal. That's what makes a game a game. We are doing this. We are trying to get to this destination. We are trying to score points to win this game. I don't need like an open thing where like, oh, just do whatever you want to do and whatever happens at the end is fine. That's not a game. That's like let's just have coloring books. Let's just draw.
Wow.
So yeah, just for me, a game that fits this bill to me, and I know there are a lot of them, like Zia, Legends of a Drift System.
The cowboy one, whose name I'm forgetting.
Western Legends.
Western Legends, yeah.
Yeah, is a sandbox game. And Merchants and Marauders is to some extent. Merchants and Marauders is a game that I just cannot get with. It runs so long, and, you know, I understand, like, the draw in Merchants and Marauders, like, oh, you can be a pirate, oh, you can be a trader, but it just felt like a lack of focus, and I'm in it for a game for the... And it's not the only thing, but like I just want like a set of rules and a goal, and this is what we're doing. And I'm not looking to like live my best life while playing a board game. Basically, I'm not here for like a sprawling narrative. So sandbox games, no.
I think I'm mostly with you. I think that sandbox games get like 25% of the way towards being a role-playing game, which is, I also kind of want that structure a little bit in the board games I play. I kind of like Merchants and Marauders, but it's definitely way too long. And my experience with every sandbox game I've played is that it's way too long.
Sure.
That said, though, Christina, do you want to talk us through bad components and artwork?
Sure. So this one kind of speaks for itself. Doesn't need much of an explanation, but you know that feeling when you're really excited about a game and you open up the box and you start taking everything out and the components are just beautiful. You have chips that clank together that Neelan rolls in his fingers. You have coins that are real coins that you paid more money on Kickstarter for. You have cubes that are made out of actual wood, right? It's like you feel the quality and you're in a better mood when you start the game. You know, you're like excited. You're more immersed in the theme because whatever the theme is, the beautiful components make it feel more real, right? And then you have the opposite of that. When you're really excited and you open the box and it's just like, you pick up a cube and it's like so lightweight and plastic and flimsy that it just slips right out of your fingers. You can't even use it. It's tiny.
Can't even roll them around.
Right, exactly.
You can't even roll them around in your fingers. You know, like flimsy cards that get destroyed really easily. I think we all know what I'm talking about. And it just does not add to the experience, to the theme. In fact, it takes away from those things. Some ways it can even hurt the gameplay itself if it's bad enough.
I will say that a vote for me is a vote against materialism.
And Mark, you've always been such a staunch
Anti-materialist?
Yeah, exactly. As someone, I guess, that's going to be mediating this mostly, I think, Mark, I understand, like, not liking a style of game. I'm halfway there.
Don't say but.
But
Don't say but.
bad components literally will break a game. We saw this in Pendulum. We were tapping timers, wondering if they were going to work because they hadn't done the work to make sure that the sand timers were consistently running all of the time. Stuff like that is, I agree, heartbreaking. When you buy a prestige box or a game or something and there's something about it that just feels a little bit tacky, a little bit cheap, it kills it for me.
You can say but.
Fire away on bad components.
Away.
Oh, no.
Bad components.
All right.
Okay, next.
Fire away. Let the record show I fired away on Sandbox.
We have in one corner steampunk, just
right.
broadly across all four.
Me.
And second, coming from the other side, exploration mechanics that punish you. I'll start with this one because I put in the exploration mechanics thing. This is my biggest problem with a game that I otherwise love, Archipelago. You are doing your thing, you're wandering around the beautiful islands, you go into this little corner of the world and like, oh, I wonder what's over there, and you pick up 3 tiles and you can't place any of them. Is that your fault? No. Did you waste a whole action and a chunk of your turn doing it? Absolutely. It's the most inane thing ever.
It's part of the game. It's your fault.
How is that my fault?
That's the risk. That's the risk you're taking. If you're taking that action, that's the risk. It's part of the game.
It never feels like it's intended to be that punitive, though, where it's like, oh, sorry, you failed to explore anywhere. You just sailed into the abyss, turned around, and came back. It just doesn't seem like it should work that way. And a couple of games have this. Heroes of the Latendarian Sea was another one where you would sometimes explore a section.
That's a cheap. You're going to bring that game out to score points.
Of course. That's what it's all about. You get somewhere, you flip over a tile, and it tells you, sorry, 2 of your people died, ha ha. And then someone's like, oh wow, you found a treasure trove, and you've basically won the game now. That stuff just bugs me.
I get what you're saying. I mean, but if you expand that, that's like randomness, right? Like too much randomness.
It's specifically exploration, because exploration should have this element of like, oh, I'm going out to like uncover more of the world for everyone, right? To expand our play space.
For the world, for yourself, Neelan.
I feel like when it turns against you, I'm just like, well, that feels bad. Like, I could easily have moved my people within my safe space, but in the effort to try expand outwards, I just got punished for it. That sucks.
Okay, so let's talk about do-it-yourself things. Do-it-yourself things are great. You know, build yourself a bench, make a coat, do whatever you want. You know, it's cool to like make things. That's one thing. Great. Love it. The future. Future's great. I love the future. Future, you got robots, you got lasers. It's all great. All great stuff in the future.
But wait, Mark, what if we were wearing trench coats and goggles while we explored the future?
Why are you doing that? Why are you going to hurt both the do-it-yourself thing and the future thing by putting the steampunk garbage together? It ruins both sides. Everything looks dirty. Everything looks brown. It's all monochromatic. It's boring. There's a weird lens on your hat. I don't understand what's going on with steampunk.
I'm with you, Mark.
It automatically turns me off.
Yeah,
yes.
Same. I hate it. Steampunk, fire away.
Steampunk, fire away.
Oh, God. I don't even like steampunk, but I'm mad about this.
If everyone was like you, Neelan, we wouldn't even be sitting here because Christopher Columbus wouldn't have come over.
That is it for steampunk, fired away. Okay, one corner we have rule books that use colloquial fun language instead of being precise. And then on the other hand, we have, and we're going to take a guess as to who submitted this, flavor text wasting space on cards.
Wait, who did the first one?
That was me. The first one was me. So very quickly on that, it's just one of those weird things. I think as much as I like the gusto in Vladapatel and CGE's rulebooks, there's this annoying thing where they try to like make jokes and quips and talk to you as like, oh, that was weird, huh? Like while you're trying to explain the rules to you. And it's just like, dude, I'm going to have to reference this like 5 times later. Just tell me the rules. Just tell me the rules. Yeah.
Like you're searching for like what one of the win conditions is, and all you can see is that was cool, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
A whole bunch of one-liners.
Yeah. Who wants to argue on behalf of flavor text wasting
I
space?
can, in the interest of fighting against Mark, I'll take this one. So I actually like flavor text. So
Strong start.
all right, I'll pretend like I'm Kellen. So Kellen hates everything, hates flavor text.
Get in that phase.
Okay, so I would imagine, since he specified waste space on a card, I would imagine this is related to the fact that when you look at the card, you want to quickly ascertain what the card is telling you as it pertains to your game. And so if there's flavor text, your eyes might travel down to that quotation mark, and then you might read that and you're like, okay. And then at the end of it, you're like, I wonder what that means for my turn.
It is really hard to control your eyes. I do agree with you.
It's really hard. Eyes like reading quotes or italics, and that's what flavor text is usually in, right? So eyes love those things. Eyes go there. You read it. You can't help but reading it. And then your brain is all muddled with this quote that doesn't need to be there, that nobody said, that is just made up, boring for nothing. And then you have to go back and be like, okay, but what actually am I supposed to take from this card? And then once you get a hang of not letting eyes travel there, you just have to like make the effort to ignore that part of the card every time you pick up a card.
Okay, I'm going to give this a go. Well, Mark, you're trying to just read the rules of a card, and you look at the card, and there's this flavor text in the bottom, and you're just like, what is that, you idiot?
You didn't curse enough, but that's pretty much Kelly.
Okay, who did it better, me or Neelan?
Well, I think Neelan had the voice. You know, Neelan is very skilled in terms of voice work, but I think your rationale would be Kellen. As I've said, I think it was in the last episode, Kellen just wants cards that say like 5 on them, like the number 5. He just wants a 5 and just put it down. I'm voting for no jokes in rule books, fire away. Easy money.
That's my pick. Fire away. Sorry, Kellen.
I feel bad.
Can we have Christina, the professional writer, back to vote for this one?
I can fight back against myself as
Yeah,
Kellen?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I understand what you're saying, Kellen, that it's really annoying when you're trying to just understand what the card does. But come on. Like, how hard is it to control your eyes? If you don't want to read the flavor text, just don't read the flavor text. Keep your eyes at the top of the card, read what you need to, and the rest of us who like flavor text can read it. You know, and some flavor text is good and some flavor text is bad. Just like novels, just like anything, right? But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist. It has a right to exist. It's somebody's creativity, their vision for this game. It's part of their vision.
All right, can I go now? Here he goes.
Okay, yeah.
I guess you're right.
Wow, I wasn't expecting him to be swayed that fast.
Yeah, wow, Kellen, you've never said that to me before.
All right.
Okay, firing away rule books that use colloquial language.
Yeah, I'll fire away. I feel bad, but let's just say Kellen, who was represented here, Kellen fires away for flavor text, and the rest of us fire away for
exactly.
rule books.
Exactly. It wasn't a clean slate. It was 1v3. That's
Exactly.
Okay, the next matchup is going to be between bad iconography or board art that's unclear versus another Callinism, and we'll have to work through this one together, board games with elegant rules, but then everything is an exception.
So I'll take the first one because that one was mine. So bad iconography is, again, pretty self-explanatory, as all of mine are. Keep it simple. It is very frustrating, as I just described with Pendulum. When you understand what you want to do, you know exactly how you want to play your turn, and the only thing holding you back is not being able to read the icons or like distinguish between two icons. Another example of this that happens a lot for me is when we're playing Meeples on a Map games, like Chaos in the Old World. I feel like we struggled with this a lot. Like, it's hard sometimes to even see the borders, like where one territory ends and another one begins. Or sometimes even in like one of our favorites, Cthulhu Wars, the board is huge and the map wraps around. So somebody can invade you on the complete opposite end of the table, and you just have to there's a lot more mental work of remembering that type of thing, when I feel like Inish, for example, doesn't have that. It's just like the territories are enclosed in their own places, and it's very clear. So that's a huge bugbear for me. And it's just like, come on, like legibility. It's like the number one. You're making a board game. You've got to make it clear what people are able to do, right?
The biggest offender for me for this one is Broom service, which is, I think the game, it won the Spiel des Jahres a couple years ago. But for me, the lack of clarity on the board it kills me. It's hard for me to even like analyze what I feel about the rest of the game, because just the lack of clarity on the board sort of hurts everything about it.
You know, I agree with you, but I'll always love this game because one time we were playing this game at Dean's, and a new person who had never been to game night before walked through the door. It got completely silent as everyone was saying hi to the newcomers, and this person said, "I am an angry forest witch." Like really loud and clear, and he's also a professor, so he had this very like authoritative voice. And the new people looked over like, what? Where did I just walk into? Oh my gosh! So I'll always love Broom service.
I'm going to take a stab at what I think Callan is getting to with his entry here. So the idea for this is where you'll have, like, say, a golden rule or something in the game. It's like, okay, the important rule is that you're allowed to place this in this territory unless there's only one of these in this space, which is valid. Unless in this other case, this thing applies, then you can do that. Like a rule that is only explained in terms of its exceptions to what is still seen as the core rule just feels like an inane way to explain a game sometime.
I think I've heard Kellen mention this where, like, take two actions of these five and you can duplicate the same action, except you can't duplicate this one action. So, like, exceptions to, like, very basic rule sets.
Right. And I think that one of the things that specifically always bugs, if I may, Kellen in this case, is kind of like, it feels like they play tested this and realized it was too strong to allow you to do this one thing, so they just had to build that exception into it. It kind of breaks the elegance of the rules, but they were like, oh, whoops, the game doesn't really work if we allow people to do this. And yeah, I can totally see. A good example that Kellen has managed to remind us of somewhere from the ether is Archipelago has this very bizarre activation system where you look at like this flow chart that explains how the activation system works. It's like, okay, if you've done this action, then they're available to do this one, but not if they're over. There's just like a lot of weird, crazy nuance to it, and it's almost impossible to envision without literally studying this flow chart. It's absurd.
That said, I'm going with Christina's. Fire away.
Fire away. Nealon?
This is hard for me because I think that board art that is unclear is definitely frustrating. And so Race for the Galaxy is my good example for this, where like the first couple of times I played that, you struggle with it and it just feels a little bit weird and you're like, well, this could be explained better. But then once you learn it, it just becomes like a language of the game. I don't know. I feel like I have a much bigger problem with the largely inelegant rules because I'm putting myself in the position of having to explain that to someone, and it just gives me anxiety thinking about it.
Something to consider is that you are deciding whether or not this is going to lose 2-1 or 3-0. So,
well,
it don't matter.
God damn it.
You lost.
Okay, that's a fire away on
Be on the winning team.
bad iconography.
There you go.
All right.
We all won.
Okay, we have our first returnee in low quality components and artwork versus inserts that are just worse than bagging everything. I submitted this as the insert aficionado on the show. There is nothing worse to me than, especially, and let me tell you, when you start sleeving cards and you can't get them into the insert, and there's something that's just like so painful and irritating, but having to take an insert out of the game and store it underneath your bed for later retrieval. I mean, that's a very personal journey that I sort of have to go on frequently, but nothing bugs me more than not being able to use the insert given. I think sometimes there are these good intentions with inserts, but then when you just start bagging everything up and throwing them in the bottom of the box and realize, oh, this is actually easier to set up and tear down, then you've entirely missed the point.
I really like good quality inserts. I don't really care about bad quality inserts. It doesn't bother me so much. Low quality components, fire away.
I was just going to clarify. You're talking about like, because you like inserts that where everything fits.
Oh yeah,
perfectly,
I love a
right?
good insert. But inserts that just don't work, or just like clearly like this isn't actually saving any time.
Like you just have to throw it away. Basically.
Exactly. You're better off throwing it away.
That's pretty annoying. But I mean, I still think low quality is worse for me.
I don't think I can disagree with that. I think low quality components that just break a game, that's a fire away. For low quality components,
Fire away, low quality.
okay, we have bad inserts versus sandbox games.
Oh,
I'm back in on inserts for this one. It's bad inserts.
Who cares about the insert? You care about the game. I don't care about the insert. You're not playing the insert.
I kind of like sandbox games. I don't hate them. I can't go with you on this.
All right, Christina, you're going to be the decider. I'm sandboxing
All right.
fire away.
Oh, gosh.
I'm holding strong to sandbox. Insert, Christina, can you even think of an insert? I can't think of an insert. I don't know which games have inserts. Which ones don't.
Inserts annoy me because especially if it is like, it's been designed or it should have been designed to fit everything perfectly, you can spend like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to fit everything because you're like, wait, I know that this specific shaped hole has a purpose. I can't figure out what shape component goes with that. You know what I mean? It's very frustrating.
The thing is, I think for me, this is almost like one of those things that's like an inverse psychological thing where when you have a good insert, it's so satisfying and you just want that. And then when they fall short, you're just like, you actually messed with me a little bit here. I thought I was going to get a satisfying experience and now I'm just sad.
You sold me. Inserts.
Fire away.
Oh my God. Can we bring Kellen back? I'm just kidding. I would never say that.
We have a new entry here. We have games that encourage you not to take the lead versus steampunk.
Oh, these are both.
Oh, Mark versus Mark.
Mark versus Mark. Okay, this is the ultimate battle.
Mark, tell us about your new entry.
This is typified with Power Grid. I don't like games where you are punished mid-game for being in the lead. You're encouraged to like sit back, and then surge at the end. It puts me in a weird mindset where I like feel like I'm supposed to be not winning, and I just don't like thinking that way. I just can't get myself to process games or competition that way. I understand that it's part of the game, that is the game, is to sit, and then explode. But it just puts me in a weird mind space, and it just is distasteful to me. This is versus Steampunk?
Steampunk is the other one, yeah.
Yeah, steampunk sucks, but it's not going to scramble my brain and make me like instinctively recoil, like being told I have to like sit back. So I'm voting for games that don't encourage you to go in first. Fire away.
Sit back, fire away.
I think I agree. Like, it's a problem I have with area controls in games in general. Sometimes suffer from this where you start to get incentivized with everyone turning on you because you took an early lead, and then it's almost impossible to recover from. Root, that's almost the name of the game to some extent, and that always bugs me. Yeah, fire away. Games that encourage you not to take the lead. Very bad. Okay. Rulebooks that use colloquial language versus a new entry. Rules that take longer to explain than the game.
Okay, so this is mine. I guess this is kind of specific, but I will point out that we have some really, really good rules explainers in our group. Like, they spend hours preparing and teaching the game. So this is not a comment on the rules teachers. This is a comment on like the best possible rules explanation. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, probably, that the rules explanation takes longer than the game. But it's basically, the conceit is that the rules explanation is so complex, or the rule set is so complex, where the game is pretty light. So it's like you're diving into a game that really is only supposed to take 30 minutes, but it took 30 minutes to learn the rules, or 35 minutes or whatever. I think that's just frustrating because the rules kind of set you up for what you think you're getting from a game. And when you hear a long, complex rule explanation, you expect to have like an interesting, complex game. And it's just kind of a letdown when it's like, oh, this is a super light game.
For me, what springs to mind when you talk about something like this is Seven Wonders, a game that I've heard called a game that takes 30 minutes to explain and 30 minutes to play. For me, when it comes to games like these, the only way that I'll be okay with them is if I know that they play pretty quickly. Like, okay, if it's a 45-minute explanation and a 45-minute game, that's not ideal, but that's like, okay, at least we're not spending like 2 hours teaching a 2-hour game. So it has to be on the short side, and I have to sort of know that we're going to play it a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're like investing the time in the upfront, and it's a 45-minute game, but you're going to play it a bunch of times, so you don't have to spend that. Yeah. I know that makes sense.
Otherwise, it is distasteful, and I'm going to vote for games that have a overly long rules explanation. Fire away.
Yeah, I think that's my pick too. I think it's funny because when I think of examples for me, they're not necessarily games I dislike for it, but I always struggle with a game like Decrypto, for example, where if you're explaining Decrypto to new players, Decrypto is a relatively simple game. It doesn't take that long to play, but for whatever reason, and maybe this is just a failure of the rule book to like correctly explain how to teach Decrypto, but something about getting across the procedure in Decrypto is very, very hard to both explain and to internalize the first time you play it. It clicks into place like really quickly, like, you know, halfway through a game, but for whatever reason, yeah. Sidereal Confluence is another one where it is so much harder to explain that game than it is to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one that definitely bugs me, especially as someone that often falls into the teacher role. So I will say fire away on rules that take long to explain.
Fire away. Triple fire away? Did you already fire away, Mark?
Yeah, triple.
Okay.
I started the firing.
Okay, we have a double Christina feature. Low quality components versus bad iconography and bad board art.
Oof. Okay. So I will say that of the two, bad iconography bothers me more because while low quality components can affect the gameplay, it's more likely that bad iconography will 100% affect your game. And sometimes bad components can just be like, oh, it doesn't feel very premium, or this doesn't feel like the experience I expected.
I agree. I'm going bad iconography, fire away.
Okay, that's two. Bad iconography.
Fire away.
Low quality components versus board games with elegant rules, but then everything is an exception.
I don't have the problem that Kellen does with the rule set thing. It would probably be good if he was here to argue it, but for me, it's either a bad set of rules or, for like the example we mentioned earlier where it's like there's 5 things you can do and there's one of them that you can't do twice. That doesn't really ever bother me. I know it bothers Kellen. He feels like it's like a get out of jail free. I think he's actually used that term for poor rules construction, but it doesn't really bother me. I'm going to go with whatever the other one was, fire away.
Whatever the one that was.
Fire away.
I'm actually in Kellen's corner on this one. I think that rules that feel like they've been excised for the sake of covering up design flaws does bug me a fair bit, but I think I'm outvoted here, so low quality components is the winner. Bad inserts versus board games with inelegant rules.
Oh, now which one are you going to vote for? Yellen?
I still think I'm in Callan's corner on this. Like a game.
What?
I mean, look, I dislike bad inserts, but again, like I think a game that is tedious to explain because of what feels like a failure of grafting over design, like that's fundamental to what a game is as part of the experience to me.
But sandbox games are not fundamental.
Exactly.
To the experience of sandbox games.
I'm also going to vote for that one because I don't really care about inserts. Inserts don't bother me.
All right. Well, I'm sticking to inserts.
Okay.
All right.
Fire away.
Interesting.
That's going to be 2 for inelegant rules.
To be fair, I teach less often than
Sure.
you guys, so I think that probably colors my
I think,
choice.
again, it's exactly that. It's like I'm thinking of, and I had a little bit this teaching Pendulum, where it's kind of like, but how about this?
Right.
And everyone's like, oh, I hope this goes over well.
Right.
Okay, rules that take longer to explain than the game versus games that encourage you not to take the lead. Ooh, I think this is the root area control problem for me as my pick.
I'm voting for games that
Yeah.
don't encourage you to take the lead.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm with you on this one, Mark. Fire away. Games that don't encourage you to take the
Nothing
lead.
feels worse than like the intentional hangback.
Yeah.
Okay, steampunk versus rules that take long to explain.
Steampunk sucks.
Steampunk's not that bad.
Steampunk
I hate steampunk.
sucks, but rules that are bad suck more.
My
Bad
God.
rules, bad long rules.
Bad rules,
fire
fire away.
I'm never going to vote for steampunk.
You did vote for. Wait, didn't you?
No, I'm never going to vote where steampunk is not the worst
I see.
option. I hate steampunk.
No, but you did vote. Where
did I?
Where steampunk?
All right. I
Yeah,
retract my
but
statement.
because it was Mark versus Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, rule books that use colloquial language versus steampunk.
I like jokes in rule books. What's the problem with a joke in a rule book?
Because you have to
a laugh.
reference the rule books later.
Yeah, colloquial language fire.
I
away.
don't know
Oh my
why.
goodness.
I don't know why.
You are steampunk lovers around here. And I hate it.
I hate steampunk. I really do. But
You hate steampunk, but you're going to vote for jokes
Yeah.
are bad?
no, it's not jokes are bad. I'm specifically imagining the scenario because even though I don't always teach the rules, I do grab the rule book to figure
Yeah.
out something. It's so annoying. Making it any longer than it needs to be
Right.
is just, why would you do that?
It's funny because, like, as much as I just was calling out Vlada for this, one thing he did that was really cool in Tashkalar is there's almost like this mathematical document of the rules in a list, and I almost want all my rule books to just be that. Is like literally rule A,
this is what
rule
you're voting for,
1A,
Christina.
rule 1B.
Yeah.
You're voting for Christina. All numbers,
Command F.
no jokes.
I want to be able to Command F
Yeah,
exactly what I'm
exactly.
looking for in a
Exactly.
rule book.
I hope that the second half of 2020 is all steampunk, and so you can see the error of your ways.
Oh god.
Firing away on colloquial language and rule books. Okay, flavor Flavor text wasting space in cards versus steampunk.
Come on.
Okay, steampunk is way worse.
Yeah,
Fire away.
steampunk is worse than
Okay,
that.
what if the flavor text is steampunk flavor text?
That's the worst of all worlds.
I don't love flavor text as much as Mark does, but I kind of like it some of the time. Steampunk, fire away.
Steampunk fire away.
Flavor text versus bad exploration mechanics. Fire away on bad exploration mechanics. They're the worst.
I'm with you.
Yep, fire away, bad exploration.
Okay, games that encourage you not to take the lead versus bad iconography and maps and board art.
Bad iconography is bad, but I can fight through that. I don't want to play a game where I can't take the lead.
I agree.
It
What about
just
a game where you
sucks.
can't see the board?
I understand. It's bad. I'm not...
Where the
this is-
colors are exactly the same. You can't distinguish between one area and another area.
These are two
Bad.
terrible options, but I need to be unbridled. I am not a bridled person. I am an unbridled person. You can't bride me.
Yeah, it's fire away on the bash the leader thing. Like, I don't think it's ever fun to be in a position where you feel like you're doing well and then everyone turns on you.
And I agree. I really hate that, but bad iconography, fire away.
You are outvoted.
Yeah, I know.
Rules that take too long to explain versus bad iconography.
Ooh, Christina versus Christina.
Bad iconography, fire away.
I'll go with
This
that.
is like, it really bugs me.
Yep,
Bad iconography.
I
Yeah,
go with that.
I could see that.
Because there are times where a long explanation does justify it in specific circumstances, but yeah.
Yeah,
And like Neelan pointed out, a lot of games that have this problem, the game is still good.
and that's exactly what I was going to say. If I could think of a game that was broken by this, then I would be on board with it. But yeah, all of the games I could think of are kind of good games. So yeah, bad iconography, fire away is going to take it. Rules that take long to explain versus low quality components. I think it's low quality components for me.
Yeah, it's low quality components.
I'm going to say rules, but doesn't matter.
Okay.
I lose.
Fire away.
Rules that take long to explain versus rules with lots of exceptions.
I'm going to vote for the non-Callan one. So I'm voting for
Yeah,
Christina.
me too.
I know.
Rules that take longer.
I think it's the exceptions one still for the reasons I said. Like, it feels like something that will come up during the course of the game versus just during the teach of it. So, but am I voted, right? Okay.
Yep.
Rule books that use colloquial language versus inelegant rules.
I'm voting for Callan in this one because I like jokes.
I think I have to too. As much as it bugs me, as much as the jokes things bugs me, I don't think it's as bad as just fiddly, inelegant rules.
Yeah, inelegant rules.
Fire away. Bad inserts versus colloquial language. The battle of
Ooh,
the
Neelan versus Neelan.
insane
The
things.
Battle of
that
the
just
Neelans.
Bug me and me alone. Yeah, it's colloquial rules. I mean, the rules trump the inserts every time, so that's my pick.
I'm going to vote inserts.
Just to mess with me?
No, because I honestly don't mind. I know that a lot of people do not like the joking in rule books. I totally think that's a thing. But for me, I generally doesn't bother me. So
Amanda,
Christina breaks it.
fire away.
Okay. Steampunk versus bad inserts.
Come on. You're never going to see the insert again. You're opening the box, you put the game away, you never see it again. Steampunk is forever.
You may never see
Steampunk
them
is on the
again.
cover.
I look at them every day in the corner of
Steampunk is
my
on the
room,
cover.
Mark.
Look, let me tell you, this is very easy to decide. When you close the box, you don't see the insert, it's out of your mind. But what do you see on the cover of the box? Some idiot with a hat that has a thimble on it. Steampunk is worse.
Bad
by the way.
inserts, fire away.
This one is hard for me.
This is the age-old question, Christina.
This
You
is
have to
the
decide it.
steampunk versus bad inserts. Would I rather play a steampunk themed game or put a game
So,
away?
Christina, you've put all the minis in. They're all perfectly there. You're down to one mini, and you realize it doesn't fit in the
Stop,
last
Neelan,
spot.
stop.
And then you're
Wait,
like,
guess
oh
what?
my
Guess
God,
what?
I'm going to take all these out and reshuffle them.
I know, but
But you have to deal with that after you just played a 3-hour steampunk.
steampunk fire
What?
away.
Bad inserts versus bad exploration mechanics. Bad exploration for me, fire away.
Bad exploration.
I was going to say
Fire
bad
away.
inserts, but...
What? No, you
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The exploration thing usually feels like it's justified in the rules, usually. But I could go either way.
I also feel like this is one of the things that for whatever reason, it's almost became like a running joke with Archipelago where I just seem to get like hit by it more than anyone.
That is true,
Yeah.
actually. Neelan has a hard time with exploring an archipelago, so I understand this particular bugbear.
Flavor text versus bad inserts. Bad inserts.
Bad inserts.
Bad inserts.
Flavor text versus sandbox games. Ooh.
Sandbox games. Ooh!
Box games.
Are
fire
you
away.
kidding, Neelan?
There are no oohs here.
You're going to vote against flavor text?
No, I kind of like flavor text. I'm with you. Like,
Yes.
again, I don't hate sandbox games, but I don't love them either. And flavor text I kind of like. So yeah, fire away on sandbox games. And we're done.
All right. I'm
Ooh.
excited.
We have our list.
We're going to go from the most tolerable to the worst of the worst.
Exactly.
Can we guess?
All right, here
I
we
think
go.
everybody can guess the.
I actually have no idea.
Most
I
tolerable.
never
I
know.
think.
I
I think the most tolerable is going to be flavor text.
Okay.
Sorry, Kellen.
It should be.
It
All right, here we go.
absolutely
Let
is
us know.
that. Number 11.
That's right.
Flavor text that wastes space on cards.
Wrong.
Kind of fine.
Wrong. Objectively wrong. We've just proven that.
Number 10. Sandbox games. Objectively
well.
slightly less
Nice.
wrong, I guess. 9. Bad inserts. You guys have no idea.
Ooh,
You have no idea.
That was lower than
it
I
should be higher.
expected.
Number 8. This should definitely be higher.
Close the box and it's not an issue anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Number 8. This should definitely be higher on the list. Punishing exploration mechanics. Number 7.
Only for
Yeah,
Neelan.
me and me alone. Number 7 is steampunk.
Oh my God. I can't believe we're
That feels
condoning
right
Yeah.
to
this
me. That feels
behavior.
right.
Yeah, for a totally fine theme, number 7 feels okay. Number 6, rule books that use imprecise or colloquial language.
Yeah, I thought that'd be higher.
Number 5, board games rules with lots of exceptions. So
cannot
Kellen
believe
placed
he got
higher
up to
than
5.
we all
He
expected.
got
cannot
in the
believe-
top
Top five.
5.
Kellen finished.
Number 4, rules that take longer to explain than the game. Number 3, low quality components and artwork. Number 2, bad iconography or board game art. And number 1,
The worst
the
thing.
worst thing in board games. The number 1 board game barrage, board game bugbear. Games that encourage you not to take the lead.
Take that, Friedman
Wow.
Friesa, and your power grid bull.
Don't be afraid to lead the pack and run
Right.
with it. Don't let the game bring
I don't
you
know
down.
why I had that all ordered wrong in my head. I did not expect it to come out that way.
See, that's the
I mean,
excitement of BGB
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah,
You
you,
just
never
never
know
know.
what's going to happen.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast. Thank you so much to Mark and Christina for joining me, and thank you all so much for listening. You can catch us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We also have a very active Discord community. The community has...
Poppin', I believe, is the correct phrase.
Yep.
It's poppin'.
It's popping, exactly.
Popping off. I think. Popping off.
It's all popping off in the Discord community. It is genuinely a fantastic environment. I am amazed every day.
You sound like a 70-year-old that just learned like a slang
Yeah,
kids phrase,
exactly.
you know? It is popping off.
It's totally lit in our Discord community. God, I feel terrible having said that. Yeah, no, it's genuinely a fantastic place. Like, it's so full of heart and just enthusiasm and people like wanting to talk about their favorite games and encourage and recommend stuff to people that ask genuine questions about, well, I like this game. If you have thoughts on games you want to share or want to ask, please come to our Discord community. We are at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord.
Like, honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if people would recommend our Discord community before they recommend our podcast.
Right.
Because the people in the Discord are just, it's like such an awesome
Yeah.
community. It really, really is.
Everyone is so friendly and helpful. It's kind of nuts.
Yep.
Thank you as always to Heart Society for our intro and outro music. What's on your mind, kid? Goodbye.
Bye.
I'm high. I'm ready. I want you to save me from myself.
Did I start this? I did start this.
Oh yeah, I've been recording for 6.5 minutes.
Yeah, so so
Yeah, same.
I mean, we're never going to use that, but it's okay.
What? That was all gold, right?
Oh,
there,
no.
Mark.
I mean, you're local. I'm going to definitely record.
Oh,
or
yeah,
use
yeah.
The bit where Christina was saying she was saving her pennies for hot dogs. That's a definite
no.
at the end.
As that was coming out, I knew. I was like, don't say hot dogs. Say anything but hot dogs. And that's what happened.